If you wish to understand the universe, said Tesla, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Exactly. The brain is not who we are. It is a processor of information and a communicator of information. As this man rightly said, looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking inside a radio for the announcer. The radio is just decoding information. That's what the brain body is doing. The brain is dark but sees light. How is that possible? How can my brain be totally dark and I see this light? Because that light in its prime form, like everything else, is just an information source. And I'm decoding that information source in here into the visual reality of light, because that's what the information contains. Thus, that's what it manifests when I decode it. So, this is right. There is no spoon. It's not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself. Because that spoon only exists in that form when you decode it from energetic information. Information is encoded in what we call light. White light contains all the colors of the spectrum. Isaac Newton called the rainbow a spectrum because out of the Latin word for apparition or phantom, that's where we get the word spectre from. And colors are frequencies. They're just different frequencies, and when we decode them, we see that color. We think those flowers are red and yellow. They're not. Nothing has any color. The color is decided in our perception of it by whether it reflects certain frequencies or whether it absorbs certain frequencies. We're only seeing light that reflects. Thus, we're only seeing that color which is reflected by the object, therefore it seems to be that color. Light radiation is information, and the frequency or wavelength vibration is its delivery system. The information dictates the frequency. This is mainstream science. They talk about dark energy, dark matter. So you have this massive area of stuff they say exists in this universe which we can't see. You then have light, electromagnetic spectrum, etc., which is 0.005% of what they say exists in this universe, and visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can decode into a visual reality, is a fraction of the 0.005%. This is the visible spectrum within the electromagnetic spectrum. Look at it, it's tiny. And that's all that we can see. We are in a frequency band. We call it the world, we call it reality, but there are other frequency bands interpenetrating this one, like radio stations and television stations, sharing the same space. And what you perceive is what you can decode, what you are. And so through the body we perceive in a visual sense what the body can decode, which is this little band of frequencies. So what is the universe? It is information. And what is the universe? It is information decoding information. When you put a disk in a computer, it's information. The computer is information. It decodes the information. One part of information is encoded to be decoded. One information source is encoded to decode. And that's exactly how our reality works, except the body is decoding and also encoding. The brain is massively part of the decoding system of this wireless cosmos. We do not have empty space between us. We have energy. We have electromagnetic energy, and we have in that energy information. And from that, what I call the biological computer decodes that information into a sense of reality that we think is solid but simply cannot. And the most dense of things, rocks, mountains, however kind of they may be indestructible, they are at their base form an energetic information field. The more dense the energy, the lower the frequency, the denser and more solid the form appears to be. The base form of our reality is waveform, energetic waveform, which can carry extraordinary amounts of information. I call it the metaphysical universe. Nikola Tesla, the genius from which so much came, one of the great scientific geniuses of modern times, who in effect gave us the electrical system. He gave us radar because it was stolen from him, and he could see beyond the physical that we perceive. And he said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of our existence. Why? Because you go to the source of the reality instead of the decoded expression of that reality. So we live in this cosmic internet. On one level, it operates on an electromagnetic level. Of course, the brain is working electrically as it interacts with it. So what is the internet? People say, well, it's like pictures and text and colors on a screen. Well, yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, it's electronic circuits and all that gadgetry. What is television? Well, it's pictures on a screen. Yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, television, in the analog sense, is frequency fields or the electrical kit that they do now with digital. And our body-mind, the body-mind as I call it, is like a computer system which allows us to experience this reality. If you look at the body, it's just like a computer in its basic sense. When the computer don't work anymore, won't switch on, what do you say? My computer's dead. It goes into sleep mode to save energy. It has an antivirus system. That's our immune system. Best antivirus system ever. The brain is the central processing unit. And then you have DNA, which is basically the hard drive. And the senses are decoding systems, decoding information into a form that the brain can decode. So the senses are taking waveform information, vibrational information, they're turning into electrical information, they are communicating it to the brain, which then decodes that into a sense of reality we call the world we live in. The motherboard of the body, that is the system of meridian lines of energy used in acupuncture, which take information around the body. When information is passing around the computer too slowly, things start to malfunction. And what do we say? My computer's so slow today. Yes, because the information is not passing around at optimum level. When the information is not passing around these chakra systems and meridian line systems, then the computer malfunctions. We call it dis-ease, disharmony. What the acupuncturist is doing is using these needles and other techniques to make sure the flow of energy, information around the meridian system is optimum. This is why in ancient China they used to pay the acupuncturist when they were well, but not when they were ill, because his job was to make sure they never got ill. People say, you see this in the media, he's saying you put a needle in your toe and you cure a headache. That's crazy. Well, it's not crazy, it's perfectly logical. If the problem with the head is that one of these meridian lines of information is blocked in the toe that goes through the head, then it's no good putting it in the head if the blockage is not in the head. You put it in the toe and that clears the meridian, which takes away the pain from the head. It's very simple. And I love that line. You see that on news programs. They're talking about a story. They'll say, well, what we know is, well, what do we know at any point? Until 1929, scientists thought there was only one galaxy in the universe, the Milky Way. Today, they estimate minimum 100 billion. From one in 1929. And at that point, they would have said, what we know is. Well, what do we know?
And one of the things I've been talking about for decades now, and I gave it the name at one point, the Hunger Games Society, It's a structure which you can symbolize as a pyramid, where at the top of the pyramid you have this 1%. Actually, it's less than 1% at the core. At the bottom of the pyramid, you have the rest of humanity that are not in the 1%. And the 1% of hijacked by this point all the wealth of the world, basically, and therefore they're calling all the shots. And between the controlled masses and the 1% is a merciless police military state to hold that status quo. And when you look at the way society's going, day after day after day, you can see that happening. You've got the police state and the police military state emerging more and more, the surveillance state. That's all part of this middle strata to impose the will of the 1% on the masses of the people. You've got more and more people at other levels of income that are being touched by this austerity. You've now got the so-called middle classes being targeted and finding it harder and harder to financially survive. You've got more and more people falling into the lower strata, more and more homelessness, etc. More and more lower wages. And at the top, you've got this incredible concentration of wealth, thus power, into the hands of fewer and fewer people, to the point now where vast percentages of the world's wealth are actually held by single-digit numbers of people. And this is the Hunger Games society unfolding. And so, you know, we can look at the pressures on freedom of speech, but entrepreneurs that want to use their skills and use their ingenuity to challenge that Hunger Games structure with freedom and with a greater expansion and distribution of wealth, they're also finding themselves targeted by the system with regulation and you can't do this and what have you. Because anything, whether it's freedom of speech or whether it's entrepreneurs that are doing things that are undermining the emergence of this Hunger Games society pyramid, they're all being targeted. And so it's going to be a challenge to take it on. It is a challenge to take it on. But, you know, what did I just say? 1% or less than 1%. And the 1% can only have the power they have because A, they control the money systems and control governments, but also because that middle strata of the police military state, who are made up of people from the population, police that population to the benefit of the 1%. When they start to realize that actually their families are being affected by this, their children and grandchildren have to live in the world that they're helping to bring in by protecting the 1%'s interest from the interests of the masses, then the whole pyramid will fall. And, you know, I'm more confident than I've ever been that pyramid will fall, but it won't fall on its own. We've got to start getting engaged.
Okay, so let's come back to that. I'd like to explore you a little bit more, David, if that's all right. So you said earlier you can't walk down the street without getting laughed at.
I couldn't. I can now.
Okay, so
I get stopped in the street and talked to very seriously now about what's going on in the world. It's been a dramatic transformation, but it once was like that, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to talk about both of those sort of more extreme scenarios. So at first when that happened, how did it make you feel and how did you deal with it and cope with it and carry on doing your work despite all this ridicule?
Something inside of me told me this was leading somewhere. And that if I kept going, then that somewhere would emerge. And when you go through the level of ridicule that I did in the early mid-90s, one of two things happens. either it destroys you and you withdraw from the world, or you let go of the prison that most people live in, which is the fear of what other people think. Most people are not living their lives. They're not living who they are. They're living what they think others think they should be. And therefore, they're living a lie. They're living someone else's version of them. What happened to me as a result of that massive ridicule is that I let go of the fear of what other people thought. And when you do that, it's indescribable what that does, because no more mental gymnastics before you open your mouth. What do I say here?
They want you, don't they?
Hello? Hello, darling. Yeah, I'm in the middle of an interview. Would you like to be part of it? No. All right, that's good. I will. All right, darling. See you later. Bye. No, you were very good. You were very good. Bye. What I did was let go of that fear of what other people thought of me, and the freedom is indescribable. Because, like I say, you don't have the mental gymnastics. How do I put this so they won't think I'm crazy? What do I leave out so they won't think I'm crazy? You reach this point where this is me, and I don't give a damn if you think I'm crazy. So,
how did you do that?
Well, it's something that comes from letting go of the fear of what other people think. You know, I mean, if you ask people to write down, say, their top 5 fears, all over the world, invariably, the vast majority would include speaking in public, right? Mm. What is the fear of speaking in public? It's the fear of what other people think.
Ridicule, shame.
Yeah, it's the fear of what other people think. Mm. So when you stand on a stage, if you fear what other people think, you can be nervous because the power dynamic is with the audience, because they are going to decide if you feel secure or not. So you're scanning the audience as you're speaking, and you're looking for reaction. What do they think of it? That power is there. Mm. Once you let go of the fear of what other people think, you can speak to 100 people or 1,000,000 people. It doesn't matter, because the dynamic has changed. The dynamic now says, this is my truth, and I respect your right to make of it what you will and come to your own conclusion. But this is my truth, and your reaction is not going to affect my truth. So however you react to what I'm saying, whether you like it, whether you laugh at it, or whether you condemn it, it doesn't matter to me. Mm. Because it's my truth and I have a right to speak it. My truth and my security is not dependent on other people's reaction to me. Mm. That's I completely respect their right to respond as they choose. But I have a right too not to be affected by it. And so in that way, you can get ridiculed in the street and it don't really affect you. You just shake your head and walk on. And sometimes it's an interesting experience, really. Sometimes.
Do you have a bite?
Well, one very rarely I have long ago. Mm. But one of the things I have done, when people have been laughing at me, the bloke, I've stopped, and I've started laughing at them and pointing at them. If I've got someone with me, oh, look, you want to see the absolute anger on their faces and the indignation. And you think, hold on a minute, I'm just mirroring you back at you. Yeah. You know, and that's an interesting point about, human interaction. When we say something about someone, or do something about someone, we think that that's making a statement about the someone. It's not. Every time it's making a statement about us by what we are, by what we say and what we do. But people don't see that. And this is why people don't see so often that they are mirrors of that they rail against. You know, if you take this progressive mentality, like I say, I'm not talking about a liberal mentality. I'm a liberal. If you look at the definition of the dictionary definition of liberal, it is someone who believes in maximum freedom of speech, maximum freedom of lifestyle, maximum freedom of everything. But a progressive mentality, which they actually call liberal, it's stunning, believes in the opposite of that. So you have people who rail against the system, who think they are anti-establishment, who are actually doing exactly what the establishment wants, which is to silence the population. When you've got the progressive anti-establishment mentality saying to government, he must be silenced, she must be silenced, and the government and the corporate world and the establishment are going, yes, we would be delighted to do that. and so it's this mirror, this inversion where people perceive themselves in a certain way, but actually act in a way that's the very same as that they rail against. So they'll talk about fascists. We're anti-fascists. All right, you're anti-fascist, right? So what do you want to do? We want to silence these people. That's what fascists do. You know, they can't see it. That's the problem.
I've gone through this struggle in my life, David, a little bit, where when I was young, I was very overweight and I didn't really feel like I fit in, and I was a bit slow on being liked, and that seemed to build a bit of a need in me to be liked, which I started overcompensating for, you know, as I grew up.
I understand that.
And I think it's only been the last few years I've really started to go, you know, this is me, this is who I am. And sort of, I still think it's there, but I think it's like I'm managing it better. I have found, like you visibly lifted when you said it. It was like when you said it's liberating and freeing. It was like you exercise something from and I just know how amazingly more impactful and happy and confident people would be if they stopped worrying about what everyone thought about them. And I really want to dig in this because I don't know if you were able to do it through some introspection, or I don't know if almost you were forced to do it because it was, like you said, hide away and, you know, I don't exist in the world because they've beaten me, or one day you thought, this is enough is enough. So what could you say to other people who are a bit overly worried about what people think to help them get rid of it?
Well, first of all, if you have people around you who so disrespect your right to be you that they give you a hard time for being you, then what are you doing with them? You know, there's loads of other people out there that will respect you. Go and find them. Don't surround yourself with people that don't respect your right to be you. I don't care if they're family. I don't care who they are. If they don't respect your right to be you, then what you're doing, interacting with them all the time, it's just going to make you depressed. It's going to make you frustrated. Walk away. And if they then come round, great. But if they don't, well, equally great. You know, it's like kids. I see this thing with parents. You know, I've spoken to people in their 60s who are still feeling guilty for not doing with their lives what their parents wanted them to do. Oh, you know, I wanted to go walking in India, but my mother wanted me to be a lawyer. I don't like the law, but, you know, I had to do it. Oh, no, you didn't have to do it. You know, if your mother wants to be a lawyer, she could go be a bloody lawyer. If you want to walk in India, go and walk in India. And if your mother, I don't care, all these stuff, oh, but she's, I don't care. You will only express your true, unique self if you refuse to let anyone impact and suppress that expression of your true, unique self. And the number of people, the number of parents who, and I think this is child abuse, frankly, who want to live their lives through their children, who want to get kudos through their children. You know, I was in America once, and I saw this this sticker at the back of a car. My daughter won this so-and-so degree in college. And I'm thinking, yeah, your bloody daughter did it, mate. You didn't bloody do it. What are you doing? Trying to get, you know, live through your children. Congratulate your children, yeah, but looking for the kudos? Oh, yeah, my son's going to Oxford. My daughter's going to Cambridge. Oh, really? You are a successful family. Her son wants to go walking in India. You know, her daughter wants to be a nurse. But they go to university because mother says so, father says so. The number of people, I mean, it's not even rare. The number of parents, particularly the ones with more money, therefore more influence and access to these educational institutions, the number of them that impose their will on their children because it suits them and not their children is absolutely disgusting. And what it's doing, it's turning out very frustrated, very distorted people who are living a life they don't want to live. And I'll say this to people: are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you get up in the morning and say, new day? If not, why not? Make a list. Why am I not happy? Why don't I have joy in my life? Why don't I wake up in the morning and say, yeah, new day? What are the things that make me not feel like that? What are the things that would make me feel like that? Okay, stop doing them and do them. And refuse to compromise on stop doing them and doing them. Take control of your life. And you know, if you go deeper into it, this is the area that is my great passion, my great love, my what I absolutely love researching and gaining understanding in, the nature of reality itself. We live in a equivalent of a Wi-Fi internet field. I call it the cosmic internet. They're quantum fields of possibility and probability waiting to manifest. I've got a computer here, and what appears on that screen is dictated by what part of the internet I access. That dictates what appears on that screen. In the same way, what part of these quantum fields of possibility and probability I access and turn into experience, in a way I'll describe in a second, dictates what appears on my screen. In other words, dictates my own life experience. If you live your life within the parameters and the program of the postage stamp consensus, then you are interacting with this quantum field of possibility and probability in a very narrow band of frequency. So the potential you have to manifest experience in your life and achievement, if you like for a word, in your life is limited by that. Once you expand your self-identity, as I'll come to in a second, and your consciousness expands, and your sense of the possible expands, you're now interacting with this quantum field of possibility and probability in a much vaster swathe. And therefore, your potential for manifestation of experience, for manifestation of achievement, for manifestation of the world, the life you'd want, becomes massively expanded. Take the Chinese internet. It is firewalled off so that Chinese people can only access a fraction of the internet, symbolic of this postage stamp consensus mentality. But beyond those firewalls is a vastness of possibility with the internet that they never see, information they never access. And what dictates our interaction with this possibility and probability is our self-identity, seems to me. If you believe that you are little me and have no power, then that manifests itself as the frequency band you're operating on, and it's very narrow. Coming back to the simplest analogy, it's someone who sees the glass half empty or the glass half full. That's a completely different perception of the same situation. And what will come from those two perceptions will be very different experiences of that glass compared with the other. And for me, we have got caught, and this is the very foundation of the perceptual manipulation. We have got caught in the illusion systematically that what we're experiencing is who we are. People self-identify with their labels. I am I am a man, I am a woman, I am black, I am Jewish, I am Muslim, I am this, I am that. And if you look at political correctness and this whole transgender explosion.
Transgender.
Yeah.
Go on, do it. Say what you want.
Don't even start.
No, we'll be another 2 hours.
Don't start me off. Because that's a complete scam. It's not about, just a very quick aside, it's not about respecting people who feel they're in the wrong body. It's not about that. That's just the excuse. It's about divide and rule. We now have feminists and transgender people in conflict. It's another fault line, but there's really very much more to it than that, and it goes very deep. But what that's doing, if you look at it, it's creating subdivisions and subdivisions and subdivisions of self-identity. We're now, in terms of looking at self-identity, we're looking down the wrong end of a frickin' telescope. They're getting minute. I am LGB, blah, 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 blah. And what it's doing, every time you subdivide into a smaller perception of self, you are getting further and further and further away from the true self, which is consciousness. Consciousness that's having that experience. When people have near-death experiences and leave the body and suddenly experience a vastly different reality, they've left the body. So what has left the body? Consciousness. Their point of awareness. We are in our prime form a state of awareness, a state of being aware. What the body does, I call it a biological computer, is it when we experience through the body, when that consciousness experiences through the body focuses the attention of that consciousness in a tiny band of frequency known as visible light, which is so tiny it's laughable, and that's all that we can see. We don't actually live in a world, we live in a band of frequency. And beyond that frequency is infinity, which we can't see. You know, if you tune to Radio 1, you tune a radio to Radio 1 or a television channel, television to BBC 1, that's what you get. You don't get BBC 2, that doesn't exist to BBC 1. You don't get Radio 2, that doesn't exist to Radio 1. You get Radio 1. And so the body is tuning us and focusing our attention in a narrow band of frequency. It's an experience. And these experiences are given labels like Christian, white, black, brown, Jewish, Islam, Hindu, right? What happens is, and this is what the program encourages, of course, is people self-identify with those labels and they say, that is me. I am my income bracket. I am my life story. I am my race. I am my culture. No. They are what your consciousness is experiencing, your point of attention. And you know, you, Mr. Islamic man, and you, Mr. Jewish man, and you, Mr. Christian man, and you, Mr. White man, you, Mr. Black man, you, Mr. Asian man, you're all points of attention of the same infinite consciousness. And because you have become so programmed to believe that your labels are you, you are fighting each other for power.
To hold on to an identity.
To hold on to impose in many ways an identity that is merely an illusion of incredibly short experience. When you leave the body, your consciousness leaves the body at a near-death experience, for instance, and I've read endless accounts all over the world for people. The common themes are incredible. They don't say, "Oh, I'm out of the body now, but I'm still a Muslim. I'm still a Hindu. I'm still a this. I'm still a that." No, they are consciousness. Consciousness, awareness, a state. That's what we are. And so, when in the body, you can stop self-identifying with the labels and start to self-identify with being the consciousness, everything changes. Because what self-identification with labels does is it focuses attention, and your interaction with the cosmic field of probability and possibility is limited by that focus of attention within that frequency. Once you say, they are my experiences, I am the infinite awareness having those experiences, you start to interact with possibility and probability on a vastly greater scale. And suddenly, life becomes an adventure. Suddenly, your life changes. People that represent the old frequency of your life, they disappear. New people come in, new opportunities happen, amazing coincidences happen that didn't happen before. Oh, it's a miracle. Fancy me? No, it's not a miracle. You're interacting with possibility and probability on a vaster scale. Therefore, probability and possibilities happen in a more extraordinary way than they do when you're there. And this is, when you do the research and you realize what is actually manipulating this world, you realize that while the vast majority of people that are making decisions every day, like politicians and people, etc., are overwhelmingly 99.999% clueless about reality, as are most scientists, vast majority of scientists and doctors and all of them, deep in the shadows, out of the public arena, where it's all coming from. They understand how this works. They know that if they can hijack your perception, they can hijack your experience by this feedback interaction between your perception, which creates your frequency band of interaction with the cosmic field of possibility and probability. The more they can contract our sense of self, the more they can control our life experiences and suppress it to the point where we're no problem to them.